All right, the Brad Pitt roles draft has begun. Ricky Flex and Dr. O here. We got to decide the draft order. Ricky Flex, do you have a coin? Just in case you didn't, I have one too.
Oh, do you want to flip it?
No,
I always
you
flip
it.
Oh,
You
okay.
always flip it. Tails.
It is heads.
No, dude, you've been on a roll with these.
I
We
have
haven't
been
done a
on a
draft in
roll.
a minute, but I will say you've been on a roll. If we date back, if I look back at the archives, you've won, I think, like the last 3 or 4. Not gonna
I
lie.
was on a huge spell of like I was down bad in picking like where I wanted the draft, and then I've just absolutely gone on a heater since. Like,
Yeah, you
get
had
me
the
to
yips
Vegas.
before.
Yes, I don't know what was I doing wrong with the flip, but okay, I'm gonna go first.
Dang, I wanted to go first. You're okay,
I
Ricky Flex.
think
You're
I'm
on the
not gonna
clock.
pick what your number one is though.
I think you are. I
I
don't
don't
know.
think I am. Now, this isn't my favorite Brad Pitt movie that I'm about to pick, but this is what I would like if I had the first pick. I want this on my board. I want this on the graphic. I'm going Fight Club, Tyler Durden. I just think it's so iconic. The fur coat as well. I think this is where Brad Pitt officially made the turn, as in he is if not the, one of the biggest stars in the world. And I think, yes, I don't want to spoil any of the movies. He already made that turn from heartthrob to like Oscar nominated actor and a good actor getting with acclaimed directors, right? This is his second instance with David Fincher. But I think this is the role where it's like, okay, Brad Pitt, like it's like Tom Cruise. Like Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise. Brad Pitt is Brad Pitt. I think this is the role that did it for him.
Yeah, this would have been my number one overall. I think this is like almost because obviously he won an Oscar for a different role. I mean, he's such a beloved actor, but I agree with you. This one shot him into a different stratosphere. The look, how ripped he is. Every dude wanted to look like Tyler Durden.
Yes.
If you saw Fight Club, right? If you saw him reciting the rules with the shirt off in front of everybody, like this is the coolest dude alive. And not only is the coolest dude alive, but he's anti-establishment, right? He's a rebel and he's anti-capitalism, and this is a role that has depth to it. And I like if you look at his other roles, I'm not going to list them right now. The depth of them, I think, are minuscule. He's not usually the lead in a lot of different movies. Here, he's kind of sharing the lead with Edward Norton. Definitely, just ultimate cool guy. And this is the one where it's like I think he just was like the number one star in the world. Like everyone wanted to be Brad Pitt after this movie for the foreseeable future. And this is where, you went from, he was already, you're right. Like 80s stuff, like I'm not going to no teasing, but like heartthrob in the late 80s, early 90s. And then he gets into some serious work and you get a gritty movie that's kind of misunderstood with Fight Club. And I think it's aged so well too, compared to his other roles.
Yes, completely agree.
All right. Brad Pitt, Tyler Durden, Fight Club, number one pick. It's on to me. So my first round pick is going to be Billy Bean, Moneyball. That's going to be one where I thought Brad Pitt, judging by like the people he was going against for the Oscar, actually should have won. That was the year of The Artist, I believe, where the lead for The Artist won. Depardieu, what was his name? Oh my gosh.
You got it.
Sort of. Moneyball. I would have. First of all, he's like not traditional in terms of how obviously it's the whole point of the movie, not traditional the way you analyze baseball. Also brought the cool guy factor because Billy Bean kind of was the cool kid, the new guy on the block that brought new ideas. Chemistry great with Jonah Hill. I love the chemistry that he has with his daughter, the relationship they formed throughout. Lovely singing voice from his daughter in this movie. But yeah, I'm gonna go Moneyball as the next pick. One of the, I guess, unexpectedly great sports movies for having such a lame type of sabermetric topic and subject with it, with like the science and the mathematics when it comes to baseball. And it's kind of like the opposite of baseball movies that we've seen when you think about Bull Durham and Field of Dreams, the romanticism of the sport. This one's more into the science of it, but also it's cool just by the fact that you have Brad Pitt in the lead role. So it's like a spin on like common baseball movies, and also has that prestige factor to it. Give me Billy Bean, first rounder.
Yeah, I think that even though you said, and I agree with you, he's still kind of the cool guy. I think this might be his best overall work in a movie.
So good.
I did think about this at number one just because of that factor, but I went for the iconic role. I went for the role I think just changed him in Hollywood forever. And that's why I picked Tyler Durden. But this was definitely in my mind for number one.
Okay. So we have our first round picks. On to the second round. I'm leading off snake style. I'm going to take this from you. I'm sorry. I'm going to do Cliff Booth, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So this is the one he wins the Oscar for. I'm still adamant. I think there's a lot of these movies, a commonality is that Brad Pitt isn't necessarily the best actor in the movie, right? In terms of performance given in the movie, but at the same time, he's surrounded by excellent cast, and and the films that he's making are so good. Like I would argue, Leo is better and Rick Dalton is better than Cliff Booth. That's a take I've had for a long time, even though Leo didn't get the Oscar for it and Brad Pitt did. I feel like this was kind of a culmination of all of Brad Pitt's work, and it's also we talk about the coolest dude in Hollywood playing one of the coolest dudes in old Hollywood, and also mysteriousness to him too. One of the most satisfactory roles when you look at Brad Pitt, he's been in some dark movies, but this one, when you at the end of this Tarantino movie, you're like, damn, like I just want to see Cliff Booth on the screen more and more and more, even though he just finds himself in these peculiar situations, he seems so calm, cool, and collected, and he's able to handle anything that's thrown at him. Give me Cliff Booth at the beginning of the second round.
Yeah. So every year, usually on around our birthdays, since we have summer birthdays, there's usually a great movie that weekend, right? This weekend for you, tough. I think Beast is like the only thing coming out this weekend. For me, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood back in 2019 came out my birthday weekend. Very excited to see that with you. We went and saw it. Okay. We loved the movie. We walk out of the theater. What was like the first thing? I forget. Either you or me said it. I think we might have both said it. We said Brad Pitt's going to win an Oscar for this role. Like, you just knew right after you saw it, like, holy crap, he was just different. And like, even though he was like the same cool guy, you just knew like, yep, that's the Oscar. And that was in the summer. It wasn't even Oscar season yet, but we knew like that's going to be so hard to beat. So that would have been my next pick. We have the same top three: Fight Club, Moneyball, Once Upon a Time.
Was it that order for you too?
For me, that was my order. I'm shocked. Because my next two picks, I thought were going to be your, one of your top, like both in your top three. So I'm a little shocked. But my next pick, I'm going to go Inglourious Bastards, Lieutenant Aldo Rain, just because I think a big thing with Brad Pitt, and similar to Tom Cruise did it a little before him, is that yes, he was that heartthrob, known for his good looks, the cool guy, but he has done, and I mentioned this also in the Bullet Train review, he's done so many pivots in his career, trying not to just be the cool guy, trying to make a well-rounded resume and be one of the greats. And I think I've fallen victim to it in the past. I know Steve-O, a guest on this podcast, has as well, where you just assume he's always the cool guy in the movie. And yes, he might be the coolest guy in the movie, but he's not the cool guy, if you know what I'm saying, as the character.
I would say Fassbender's kind of the cool guy in Glorious Bastards, to be honest. And like that's such a huge ensemble too. Like it's hard to say, like, because like the concept of the movie is also very cool for a war movie. I would also say Brad Pitt, a lot of his movies, not only the cool guy, but he's also one of the smartest dudes. And here he comes off like such an idiot. And I think his comedic timing is great in Inglourious Bastards. Right. I like this pick. I didn't have it till later. I had this at 6. I had Aldo Rain at 6, but I like the pick. You can't go wrong if you take it back-to-back Tarantino movies, and hopefully he shows up in Tarantino's final film.
Yes, so Inglourious Basterds was my 5th, but just because of the Tarantino aspect, that's just good podcasting. And then my next pick will be 7. Has to be Mills. I just can't let this slide to you. I thought for sure wasn't getting back to me. Mills, I think this is the one where, yes, he again, like I think this actually came out before, like the same year as the other movie, his first Oscar nom. But for me, this is like the one where like, yep, this guy is just on a different level. True ensemble cast where he's the one of, if not the lead, co-lead. And like, what's in the box? Like, what's in the box? You can't beat that.
He's in so many iconic moments through his career. You think about like, and like the lines you said, what's in the box, or like what's the one rule about Fight Club. You can go on. And like the moments, the stills that you have, and the range of emotion that he shows in 7 is pretty insane. He's high octane. He's great when he goes against a more subdued Somerset in a Morgan Freeman. And it's painful to watch that final scene. And partly it's not just by like the torture of the idea and the concept of it, but to watch Brad Pitt and like the pain and like the tears that he's flowing down his face as he blows Kevin Spacey away at the end. Spoiler alert. I think this was my next pick, 100%. You know how much I love this movie. I got to watch it tonight just because every time we talk about Seven, I'm tempted to just watch it. You know, I just have to. So great pick. Dark, gritty Brad Pitt. Love it. All right. Next pick. This is interesting. I think where I'm going next, I'm going with a movie I saw for the first time, I want to say a week ago. I rented it. I was blown away by this movie. I texted you while I was watching it, Ricky Flicks, doing research for this draft. I'm like, how did I've heard so much about this movie. It's late 2000s, and it's kind of hidden, and it doesn't get talked about enough. I'm going with The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford and the role of Jesse James. Jesse James is kind of an iconic cowboy throughout the history of film. I think Brad Pitt here, once again, he's kind of like people are afraid of him, but also people respect him at the same time. Goes through that range of emotions. Also is like that type of like villain, or he's that type of anti-hero at the end of his run, looking to make amends. And it's great to dive into that relationship between him and Casey Affleck in this movie. When I was watching this movie, it also felt a little bit like The Power of the Dog in a lot of different ways. Obviously, it takes a different approach at the end with those two characters, but the fascination between the two, I'm just going with this one. He was kind of unpredictable in this movie, too. He will let it rip in some scenes. Other ones, he's subdued, reflecting on his life. I love this movie a lot. And this is yet another example where he's probably not the best performance here. Casey Affleck was on another level here. But Brad Pitt, very close second. I'm giving Jesse James my third round pick.
So this was one of the ones I watched for the first time this week, doing research for this draft. I didn't particularly like the movie.
Really? Oh, dude, that movie is good. Maybe I got to watch it again and revisit. I've only seen it once.
Casey Affleck pisses me off just by his voice, just annoying. Not saying it wasn't good, but yeah, just really. And I think the last act, tough in my opinion, very tough. A lot of moving parts going on. I will say
too long. It's too long.
Way too long. I will say it is beautiful. It is a beautiful movie. Roger Deakins, exactly. Like him combined with Brad Pitt, like that's crazy. That's like Gosling and Deakins and Blade Runner 2049, just like a perfect combination. Like, and I do think the best parts of this movie, I think for me, really the only good parts is when Brad Pitt's on the screen because he is great. I think that for me, it's not in my top 10 because I just don't like the movie whatsoever. I shouldn't say whatsoever. I really just don't like it. So it wasn't in my top 10. But to be honest, like with any other movie podcaster, this is in the top 10.
And he, like Jesse James, he looms over the movie. You feel his presence as long as he's alive when he's not on the screen. But you're right. You're just hankering for that next moment when Jesse interacts with these characters and like these guys are double crossing him. Does he actually know? Is he messing with them mentally? Like there's like a mind game that goes with this role. And I think I think he's just fully aware of his power in that movie, 100%. Like Casey Affleck, he does best when he's going against, because he has such a fascination with him at the beginning of the movie. But he's like, why am I rooting for this guy? Why do I like this guy? Maybe I hate this guy. Like the inner turmoil of Affleck's character, and then just the assuredness of Jesse James. I thought that combination worked so well. But when he dies at the end and they give like another 30 minutes to the movie, it's just like, okay, now we're getting to the point we don't care about, but it kind of shows a downfall of someone who wants to be well known, although he does arguably a heroic thing in killing like an outlaw like Jesse James, right? People don't perceive you the way that you think you think that they're going to. Like fame isn't everything that it's pent up to be. I do like that movie a lot. Right? I'll revisit it though. It's not on streaming a lot. I don't believe. I had to rent it.
Yeah.
All right. Jesse James, third round pick. On to the fourth, where I lead off. This is where we get interesting, Ricky Flex. I'm going. There's one movie I know you're not going to pick, and I'm saving it for my last pick.
You sure?
I'm going to go Ocean's 11, Rusty Ryan. This is the member of the Ocean's gang that, well, just like him and Clooney, they play off well with one another, right? They bounce right back and forth. You feel like they're just the coolest dudes who've ever lived, and you feel like the conversations they have are like cool guy conversations. Like they're speaking in code. They can only say a couple words and they have an understanding of what each other is going to say. This is maybe I would say like I would watch a spinoff of Rusty Ryan from Ocean's 11. Like some of these scenes at Ocean's, like when he's like whether I don't even know. Like it was Clooney playing poker at the beginning, right? Or was that Rusty? Or Rusty's like running the overall game.
Yes, I believe so.
I just the fact this is like cool guy Pitt when he is at the peak of Hollywood, like 2001. Like we haven't mentioned some movies. I'll just go with like Fight Club is a couple of years before that. What else have we picked? So I could talk about. Seven was a few years before that, but he's in full star power mode, and he is kind of like the biggest star in that cast, I would say. And he's enjoyable to return to. We got 2 other sequels that go along with it. Those Ocean movies don't run without Rusty Ryan, so he's going to be the beginning of the 4th round.
Yeah, you saved me a burden because I was debating between 4 movies. I narrowed it down to 3 before you picked that one, and then you just narrowed my last 2 down for me. So I appreciate it. I would have picked this as well. I decided I would have because, like we've been talking about, Brad Pitt is the quintessential cool guy. And what's the role where he's the quintessential cool guy? That's Rusty in Ocean's 11. Next to
I will
George
make an
Clooney,
argument for
who's
another
no.
one, potentially honorable mentions.
I think that's why I was like, when you made your comment, you think, am I not going to pick this movie? You are right. I think I know which movie you're thinking of. I was thinking about it, but I'm not going to, so I'll just get to it. I want this at number 4 specifically. I'm going Jeffrey Goins, 12 Monkeys.
Okay.
His first Oscar nom. This was the movie in 1995. Yes, he had 7 come out this year, but he got Oscar nom in 1995. We talked about it before. 7, historically only 1 nominated Oscar for Best Editing, I believe. Nothing else. 12 Monkeys. Great movie. Honestly, a psychological thriller that's forgotten, I thought, a lot in this day and age. Bruce Willis starring. A huge cast as well. Won't get into it. But Jeffrey Goins, that was when Brad Pitt for sure did not rely on his looks. That was the first time because I won't mention any of the previous movies, but all the movies he did before that, like he was literally always good looking. Like a man rocket, heartthrob. And this was the first time where he's in an insane asylum. His
he's
eyes
spazzing out.
He's twitching, spaz, his eyes just moving around all the time and just coming at you. Like the screen is just his face just coming at you. And he has, oh God, he is amazing in that movie. I will say he did not win. To me, I won't say he deserved to win Best Supporting Actor because the big KS and Usual Suspects did win that year.
Yeah.
You can't beat that, even though it's the big KS. But at the end of the day, I think this deserves to be drafted. Jeffrey Goins, 12 Monkeys.
I agree with the fact that you just said, like, this is the first role that, like, he takes on that he's not relying on the fact that he looks like the best dude in the world. Like, you know, it's just like the guy, the dude that everyone wants to look like. He is spazzing out. He's erratic. He's flinching his eyes left and right. He's, like, changing the octaves of his voice. He's totally going for it, right? You could even argue he's, like, overdoing it for a lot of it, to be honest. But great pick. I wasn't going to pick this in the top 10, just because I'm not a huge fan of 12 Monkeys. I don't understand a lot of it, to be honest. Like I get lost in the sauce when I'm watching it. I forget which timeline we're on and stuff like that. It's it could be a very confusing movie for the audience, but your takeaway after you see it is like, wow, like Brad Pitt went nuts in that movie. Like he really went for it. That's literally your takeaway after watching it. So especially for like a simple-minded dude like me. Good pick on the 5th round.
Okay. So before yesterday, there would have been a clear pick here for me. And I think it's your next pick. And I'm not doing it because I rewatched another movie yesterday. I had the time. And I historically, on this podcast as well, used to hate this movie. But yesterday, I have done a complete turn. I have done a complete turn on The Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
Movie's amazing.
It is an amazing movie.
It's an amazing journey.
I am shocked how good it was. This was like my second full time watching it. I was a lot younger. I will say the first time I completely watched it. Other times I just went from scene to scene, like classic, like cable movie where like I go in for 10 minutes and change the channel. I watched the whole thing front to back, no interruptions. Holy crap. I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away. And yes, we don't see a full blown Brad Pitt, like good looking Brad Pitt, till like an hour 15 into the movie. But when he's on that motorcycle in the
So cool.
when he's in
Ugh.
Paris, when he's finally with Kate Blanchett, like holy crap, he was amazing in this. And I can't say he should have won because I will have to revisit Milk. Sean Penn won this year for Milk, but it's tough looking at that movie and him not getting an Oscar recognition for that. He was amazing, even with poor CGI, like I mentioned before, referred to before. Poor CGI, 2008. They did the best they could, but didn't age properly now. But holy crap, Brad Pitt and The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, my boy David Fincher,
Man,
unreal.
I thought I was gonna get this with the last pick. This movie, I've been saying for quite a while now, it gets a lot of hate based on like the CGI, the look of the character. Dude, this movie came out in 2008. Like, what are you expecting? It's like the concept of the movie. It's kind of hard to achieve if you don't have this de-aging technology and things like that. It was way ahead of its time. It looks not very good, hasn't aged well, but most CGI, as you said before, hasn't aged well. Also, the length of the movie, yeah, I get it. Like, it's a long movie, but like, I trust David Fincher, and I'm enthralled with that movie. Also, an amazingly shot movie. When you go through like the global aspect of that movie, whether he's like, as you talked about in France, him on the bike, there's just so many great shots from that movie, and the relationships that he creates, and he is it Kate Blanchett, like
Kate
the
Blanchett's the main Daisy,
yep.
and then Tilda Swinton, the woman that swims across the English Channel. That I will say that was actually decent, but not as nearly as good as the other parts of the movie. The Navy part, that seemed
It's
but everything
emotional
else,
too, dude. That
I
movie is
almost cried 5
emotional,
times
bro.
in the final act. I
Yeah,
literally almost had to get up and like leave the room, like while the movie was playing.
but
You know,
all
like
like,
because sometimes
is
I
it
just can't watch something. I literally almost like went down and cried. I
the
it was
moment
insane.
when he visits, like when he becomes a teenager? That was with Kate Blanchett at the end?
Yes. So yeah.
When
So
he
since
is
I
like
saw this
standing
yesterday, it's
at
really fresh in my
like
mind.
that shot where he's in the doorway and you don't see his face, and you're just like, you I feel like I'm gonna cry just talking about it. Like when he's like, he left her after like those years, he comes back, he's a teenager, sun is like hitting and it's like fading away as you close in on like the character and like zoom in on his face. You're like, oh my god.
Yeah,
And
and
she recognizes who he is. I think she's with her husband or something.
yes,
Isn't
the
that
new
right? Yeah.
husband and daughter.
Oh, yeah,
And
that
I'll
was it.
save that for a spoiler. But another thing two other things I was gonna say. This movie.
Heartbreaking story.
One is the CGI with Brad Pitt. Now when he's an old man, they just like accept it because the first hour, 15 minutes of this movie is him as an old man. So you just can't
Slow.
hide that. But when he's a teenager, they can hide it because it's only like 15 minutes. So they keep it in darker rooms. And that was clear to hide the CGI effect of a younger Brad Pitt. So that made complete sense. And the only other thing I was going to say is that when he's a kid and he has dementia, and and Kate Blanchett's like visiting him, I'm just like, holy crap, like I'm going to lose it. It's like it was literally the closest time I've ever been about to cry, but didn't. I could like feel my eyes like quiver. I'm like, holy crap, I'm about to just bust out tears right now. It was insane. Incredible movie. I am shocked on the turn. It's like if I rewatch Avatar, it's literally that the same effect is because everyone knows, listeners, I don't hate Avatar. I just don't think it's very good. It's like if I just rewatched Avatar today and said that movie's amazing. Literally the same exact fact. That's why Dr. O, he knows how crazy of a turn this is for me.
Yeah.
Benjamin Button, final pick.
I remember watching it was like 2 years ago or a year ago, and I was just like, man, like this movie, like this is like some of the best acting I've ever seen too. It's like there's not a ton of action in the movie unless you go out to sea when he's serving in the Navy and things like that. That's where you're gonna get your action, but like slow pace. But if you enjoy like just good acting and like emotional storytelling, you're gonna love that David Fincher movie. And it's kind of like off the beaten path for Fincher. It's not. It looks like it's on the same grade, like in terms of how it looks on screen, but it's just way more emotional than any of his movies. It's nuts. Great pick. I can't believe you got
Eric
that one.
Roth story and screenplay. Eric Roth. Frank Marshall, Kathleen Kennedy, producers.
All right.
Makes
So
sense.
now it's on to me. Mr. Irrelevant. And I think I want to go with one. It's not the best movie. It is a long epic. Period piece, I guess you could call it. not exactly factually correct with a lot of the history that goes with this movie. I'm going with Troy. I'm going with him as Achilles. Right. And obviously, you would assume a tragic ending for that character. But this is also like a 3-hour film. And there are just like obviously Eric Bana does a serviceable job as Hector. Orlando Bloom probably wants to forget this movie happened based on his performance and who he was playing. But I got to go with one of the coolest warriors that we've ever seen on screen. One of the best opening scenes to a movie that I've ever seen, when Achilles jumps behind the dude and throws a spear behind his leg. Like, physicalness of that role, the physicality, I should say, probably the best that Brad Pitt's ever done alongside Fight Club. It was, to me, it was like a movie that if it's made today, it's not going to do numbers like it did back in the mid 2000s, 2004 with Troy. And he's easily the best part of this movie. And you know he's bringing it. His delivery is great, right? Why would they bring you out here just to see you fall? Like, just the lines that he delivers here. I pulled up a bunch of quotes. I'll let you give your take off. Then I just want to read some of these quotes because they are, if this movie was better overall and more widely accepted as good, people would be saying these like all the time. Whenever you're competing with your friends against something. I did it when I was in college. I would say, like, why would you, if we would be during a party, I'd be like, why did you bring all these people just to come watch you fall? Things like that. It's very funny. Very funny. What do you think of Troy?
This movie's not like, looking back when I first watched it as like a kid, I'm like, holy crap, this movie's amazing. Like, this is like an epic, but like also it's an epic movie. Now it's like, okay, yeah, not as good, but still to this day, I'm like, holy crap, Brad Pitt's amazing. Achilles, the look,
Amazing.
like he's Tanner, like with the muscles, the long hair, the lines, alpha mentality. Oh, I killed Hector. Like, he is just an alpha in this movie. Unbelievable. Oh God, I love
He's
this
channeling
movie.
like his is a gladiator. He's like
Yes,
literally like Russell Crowe.
and
Like,
this
is
is
there no, he like beats him, like kills Eric Bana. He's like, is there no one else? No one. Like, he's just literally
right.
becoming Russell Crowe in that moment.
And it's interesting because this is in 2004. So like Ocean's 11 was 2001. This is obviously post Gladiator. So they had to, like, it's a little different, obviously. So and you have Eric Bana, who just played Hulk, right? A superhero. Like, it's just that at the time, I can't even imagine like the hype around this movie. It must have been enormous. And I'm just shocked that I am shocked because this was my number 10, I think. And my number 9 is still on the board, and that's the one I thought you were picking this entire time.
We'll get to the honorable mentions. I'm going to read through the draft picks, and then we'll get to it because I think we might be on the same page here. I actually made a slight adjustment. I had something at number 9, but I went with my 10, which was Troy. We'll talk about it. But Ricky Flex has Tyler Durden, Fight Club. He's got Aldo Rain and Glorious Bastards. He's got David Mills, 7. He's got Jeffrey Goins, 12 Monkeys. And then finally Benjamin Button from The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Dr. O has Billy Bean from Moneyball. Cliff Booth from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Jesse James from The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford. Mouthful of a title. Probably one of the flaws of it. And then finally, Rusty Ryan from Ocean's 11. What is the one that you wanted to pick, Ricky Flex, that you or anticipate that I was going to?
I thought you were going Snatch.
Yeah, that was my 9. And I made a switch at the end because, like, I just can't. We talked about so much how cool Brad Pitt is. And there's no one from like the Roman era that is looked as cool in a movie probably as Brad Pitt. And that includes Russell Crowe and Gladiator.
Agreed. Definitely agree with that. Okay. I like
But
that.
Snatch is great. And like, it's like, the thing is, you really got to buy into it because like you can't understand a word he's saying. And that's also a hugely physical role. And yeah, it was on there. It's he's a little greased up in that movie. It's early on. What's the director's name?
Guy Ritchie.
Early Guy Ritchie.
Jason Statham. It's clearly, so it's the year after Fight Club, right? 2000. It's clearly like, oh, if Tyler Durden was a Northern English or Scotsman and like couldn't really speak clear English and also was real, like that's kind of what it was. But also he had a knockout punch. That's kind of what it was. So it's kind of weird at the time, I bet. But looking back on it, that's just a fun watch, and I enjoy that thoroughly.
Not a ton of screen time, but when he's on screen, like, you're glued. Those are the moments you're looking for. Like, let's get Brad Pitt on screen again. You find that with a lot of his movies, almost every movie he's in, because he's so good and he's so like obviously appealing to audiences. I find myself watching Snatch like I wish he was in more of this movie because he's the best part about it.
Yeah.
You know?
A greasier Tyler Durden, longer hair,
Right.
gypsy.
I'll go through one that I have. Mr. and Mrs. Smith was a phenomenon when we were growing up, dude. That was huge. I was 10, you were 8 when that came out. That's a movie that would not succeed today, but that was literally the star power like in that movie and the surrounding drama behind it that made it a
Yes.
must-watch movie. Vince Vaughn, great supporting role. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I find that also as a rewatchable. Like I will like dive into that movie at whatever point it's in, especially when they first find out. Actually, no, the house scene when they really go at it became an iconic moment from our childhood. And yeah, so like Mr. and Mrs. Smith I had there. What else you got?
Yeah, that was my number 11, just because or 12. That's because of how iconic that is. Okay, this movie I know you probably don't have on your list. I watched this for the first time last year. It is one of the most overrated movies of all time. I remember reading about how movie theaters had to put a sign saying you will not get refunded for this movie, and it's The Tree of Life. The movie's awful, in my opinion, as well. I agree. I think it's Terrence Malick tried way too hard, in my opinion. And I would have picked it if the movie didn't suck, because Brad Pitt in this movie is amazing. He's the only like part of this movie I'm like, holy crap, he's amazing. He's tough to watch because how good he does as like a dad that's like kind of like that does physical assault a lot, and he kind of takes his rage out
Abuses
on
his kids? Is that what
Yeah,
happens?
yeah, he abuses his kids out of rage that like he was supposed to be a musician, but instead like he raised a family and didn't like go for his dreams. So he works at like a power plant. So like he kind of takes his rage out on his kids, but he's amazing in it. He's absolutely amazing. Nominated for an Oscar. I think he was tremendous, but I just couldn't pick it because I hate this movie.
I see this streaming a lot. I'm not tempted to watch it at all based on what you told me about this movie. The fact that people want refunds after watching it, not because there's anything heinous about it. It's just so like boring. Terrence Malick is a very interesting filmmaker. And what we know about Brad Pitt with his filmography, like he rarely unites with a director that doesn't have some prestige upon their name. And he frequently collaborates with those type of directors. But yeah, I haven't seen it. I've only heard terrible things. This is actually one of the 3 movies that I thought might have been drafted that I haven't seen with Brad Pitt. I've never seen Thelma and Louise. And
Oh wow. So
that's a
that's
breakthrough.
Yeah.
Right?
So I revisited a few movies for this draft. We mentioned Jesse James. I also revisited Curious Case of Benjamin Button I talked about. I revisited Sleepers. Robert De Niro, a huge cast there.
Never seen it.
I thought like, oh, maybe if I revisit this, he's a lawyer in it. I'm like, okay, I'll revisit. Okay. It's what's his name? Barry Levinson movie based off a true story.
Nice.
Allegedly, there's some drama behind there. I don't think Brad Pitt was very good in it, to be honest. Didn't want to pick it. And then the 4th movie I revisited was Thelma and Louise, and I'd never seen it before either in its entirety. Brad Pitt, low key, was really good in that.
That was his breakthrough. That's why everyone's like, "Oh my god,
really
this guy!"
good. Yeah, like again, like he probably looked like that's like complete heartthrob.
Like 18 years old, bro.
Yeah,
like he's fresh from like he's just new.
It's insane how much of a heartthrob he is. Literally commanded the screen without trying. Like, literally did not try because he knew it wasn't a major character, but just because how good looking he is, what he was saying, his like tone of voice.
Does he have a twang in that? Does he have an accent?
Yeah, the accent. It's unbelievable. And then I won't spoil anything with Brad Pitt and his character, but it's very interesting the turn it takes. Very good role. Not enough screen time to be picked here, but wow, I was very impressed by that too.
Popular movie I also haven't seen that I thought was going to get drafted here is Coen's Brothers, Burn After Reading. It's something to me, like I've just for some reason never been drawn to it, and I know it's like the moments that you think of with Burn After Reading is Brad Pitt with the red like spandex on, and you see him with the headphones, like banging, snapping his fingers and things like that. That's the only reason I've thought about watching it because Brad Pitt's in this movie. I know I'm probably gonna like it and things like that. Coen Brothers, I like most of their movies, but for some reason I've just never gotten to it. Was that gonna sniff your list at all?
So I rewatched a lot of Coen's Brothers during the tragedy of Macbeth week here on this podcast last year. So I watched this movie for the first time. Did not like this either. Did not like the movie. George Clooney cringy in that, like as his character is. I mean, but Brad Pitt again, him trying not to be Brad Pitt in this movie, very goofy, very funny. The best part, in my opinion, in that movie. So if you picked it, I wouldn't have been upset. but it would have been like that Terrence Malick Tree of Life situation where I didn't like the movie per se, but I liked the performance.
He's a little dopey, right? In that one.
He's very dumb, very
So
dumb.
it's like Aldo Rain, but like also just is not like has no military skills.
No, he's just dumb. Like he's dumb.
Just like empty airhead.
He's a trainer. He's a physical trainer that doesn't know anything.
So maybe I'll check it out. I'm not really tempted to. Maybe I'll just watch Curious Case of Benjamin Button instead. But the last two I had for honorable mentions, I'd add Astra. We saw that in theaters together. I thought Brad Pitt was great in that. Very slow movie. Interesting climax with Tommy Lee Jones in the ship. It has a twist that you don't necessarily see coming, right? To me, it kind of blew my mind. But you could argue it was a boring movie, to be honest. But like it visually looked insane. Brad Pitt, solid, very stoic compared to most of his other roles. And then Meet Joe Black I had on here. I personally like this movie. I believe you kind of like it too. But and like Joe, like this one gets a bad rep. Also, like we find Brad Pitt in a lot of these movies that are criticized because they're entirely too long. But I don't know. I liked him in this movie. He seems like he's so innocent throughout it. And it's also like the late 90s, 98, like also Heartthrob stage right before Fight Club and things like that. I love this chemistry. I forgot what the actress's name is. She looks like Minnie Driver's sister. I don't know what her name is. But him and Anthony Hopkins, I like how they interact. And he speaks in a very specific way here. And I think it actually worked really well in the movie. So Meet Joe Black was the last one I got.
I definitely understand people's hate towards this movie, as in like critically, but this movie's so fun. And like the peanut butter, like he only eats peanut butter. And the car scene when he gets hit by the car, like this movie's just
it's rewatchable, dude. It is rewatchable.
Yes, this is a classic. If it's on TV, you're like turn it on just for like to see a couple scenes. Like I do like this movie. Couple others I want just to note: Killing Them Softly. I do enjoy it. It's Andrew Dominic. What's Andrew Dominic doing next? Blonde. Who's producing Blonde? Brad Pitt is one of the producers on Blonde.
He has tight relationships with everyone that he works with.
Yes,
everybody.
Yes, so
he's producing the movie,
yeah. So, and he's also doing another movie this year. He's doing She Said, the Carey Mulligan, and it's also interesting because of Weinstein, obviously with his prior connection with Weinstein, he's producing that movie. So it's very interesting as well. And then the only other one I wanted to mention, and I thought this would be interesting because I don't know if you've seen it, but this was the year after Thelma and Louise, and it's the first time he was like he was like a main supporting role / co-lead, and that's A River Runs Through It. He was Paul. He's the obnoxious or rambunctious brother. He's very good in it. He is very good.
Netflix is constantly, whenever I turn it on, it's screaming at me to see that movie.
It's a little like boring to
Dr. O,
yeah,
you need to watch this. You're doing the Brad Pitt draft. A River Runs Through It. You need to watch this. That and Legend of the Fall.
Legend of the Fall. But this one's like a little, for me, I don't particularly love it, but I understand it's like very well done, a little slow for me. What's his name? Tom Selleck or Tom Skerritt. You know, Ted.
Tom Skerritt.
Yeah. He's in this, he's like the dad. But yeah, Brad Pitt, the troublemaker, very good in that as well.
All right. So that's gonna do it for our draft and the honorable mentions. Very fun draft. So I know me and Ricky Flex have been looking to do this for quite some time. I'm happy that we got to do it and talk about Bullet Train. That's going to do it for episode 135 of The Drive-In. Make sure you're following wherever you're listening right now. We're available on all listening platforms. If you decide to switch, make sure if you're watching this on YouTube right now, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We want to build up those subscribers, and there's new content coming out every week. Make sure you're also following us on all social media platforms, on Twitter and Instagram. At Twitter, we're at The Drive-In Pod. At Instagram, we're at Drive-In Pod. No, drop the, as one Justin Timberlake once said. Also, make sure if you're listening right now, rate us 5 stars, leave us a review. If you leave us a review, whether it's good or bad, right, make it entertaining, and we'll shout it out on the podcast. Thank you again to all the listeners. For Dr. O and Ricky Flex, until next time, we will smell ya.